It was a good day for Bitcoin. It was a great day for stocks. NASDAQ pushing 3% higher. BTC in line with that, but a little bit slower than what we've gotten used to on big up days for risk assets. Gareth Soloway is joining us here this afternoon, Chief Market Strategist at InTheMoneyStocks.com. Gareth, welcome to the TD Ameritrade Network.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. I've been following your coverage on Bitcoin on Twitter for some time. A lot of the technical stuff has just been spot on. So tell us how you're looking at the chart right now.
So we saw that mega flush down to 42,000 on Bitcoin kind of over the weekend period, and then it has snapped back. But like you said just before the break, the bounce today was very mediocre considering the stock market got such a move. And I've been really talking about this deleveraging, how when the stock market sells off significantly, you get this deleveraging that's kind of spills into cryptocurrency. And I really believe that last week we saw that coming into Bitcoin. The concern here, again, just like you're mentioning, is that you're not getting the big bounce backs. You're getting sellers to come out of the woodwork. The same thing when you had Bitcoin breaking the April 2021 highs. There was so much bullish sentiment. Why didn't it surge to the upside? The answer is you had big money selling into that pop. So short term, a little bit more upside, I think, and then I got to believe there's another leg down coming.
Where do you think that short-term upside could get us? We were looking at around 55 on the chart earlier. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm kind of in that camp. It's a little lower for me, a little bit more conservative. I'm looking around 53,500 to 54,000, but right in that wheelhouse is what you're expecting. You're going to see the bullish sentiment start to switch over a little bit more. That should bring it up again. But my concern is that the stock market, as soon as it starts to sell again, which I do think it will then take crypto down with it again. And crypto does X times, right? So if the markets are down 1%, Bitcoin's usually down 3 or 4%.
So do you think that means we should be doubting the stock market rally here today? I guess it depends which one you think is truer. Is Bitcoin a truer reflection of risk or stocks? Because if it's Bitcoin, then we might want to be alert and wary of a fade in today's stocks. If it's stocks, then I guess we should get ready for that Bitcoin bounce. What do you think is the truer asset?
Yeah, so I think the stock market is more the legitimate one. So I do think the stock market rally today could bring crypto back up a little bit more. But again, you're looking at a market now that's starting to reckon with the Federal Reserve saying, hey, we are tapering, and they're being more aggressive. And remember, Jerome Powell just was reappointed by President Biden. President Biden has the midterms coming up. His voting base is a huge percentage of people that are affected by inflation. So he's all of a sudden talking more hawkishly, and that means that the stock market needs to adjust itself. So today was a nice snapback rally. I don't personally think it's going to last.
Do you think that this could be potentially, talking now broadly risk assets with stocks here for a moment, do you view this as potentially a turning point where trend could actually reverse, where all these dips have just been that, dips? What could turn this into an actual downtrend?
So on the S&P and the QQQ chart, we've been stuck in this upward sloping channel since really the last year and a half. So what's amazing about that is it gives you a very defined breakdown point on the S&P 500. And again, if we go to the SPY chart, it looks to me to be right around $448. If that gives way, then the trend has broken on a technical basis, and you will see downside. And there you can see it perfectly for those of you watching. That trend, that channel is perfect for the last year and a half. If that breaks, be very, very careful in this market.
Amazing. The NASDAQ, very similar, just in that persistent uptrend. It's been so reliable. Gareth, how much does the news flow, do the so-called fundamentals factor into your analysis? I mostly have seen technical work, but also I'm hearing obviously it's impossible to be in this market without thinking about some of the fundamental causes. Any thoughts on what's driving some of the weakness?
Yeah, so I'm a big believer that the charts kind of help you predict when you're going to get that news flow. So it's all connected. But when you hit the high end of a range on a chart or the resistance point, usually something comes out of the news that all of a sudden causes that market reaction. And so again, the same thing applies in this situation where you have the Federal Reserve starting to talk hawkishly. You might see rates start to inch back up a little bit more. But I do think that, again, the fundamentals make a lot of sense. if you combine them with the charts. The one thing I will say is that fundamentals to me I do use, but it's usually when there's panic and blood in the streets, meaning that, for recently we've seen, the Chinese stocks getting absolutely trounced. And sure enough, the last 2 days they've had a huge up day. If you look at the fundamental valuations on those, obviously taking into account the regulation issue, you can make a case that fundamentally those were a good buy. They have snapped back.
Okay, so in the areas of extreme carnage, then using some kind of common sense fundamental logic to supplement the chart work, like the reference there. I want to get one other thought on Bitcoin here, Gareth. Looking at that chart, to come back to it, as you mentioned, very reasonable to see some upside here for a couple thousand more dollars, but expecting a potential rejection higher. Where do you think then it settles out? Does this look like a longer, deeper topping pattern, or do you see, and it looks like from your chart, a lot of areas here that it could catch itself?
Yeah, so 40,000 is a huge level. That was a level we banged when we fell to 30,000 kind of in May. That was a level that was resistance. Resistance on a technical basis becomes support. So 40,000 will be support. Then there's a level right around 37,500, eventually 30,000. I do believe that you're going to have great swing trade bounces along the way, but I do think cryptocurrency is going to get a washout. There is so much leverage in the system that has to get washed out. Long term, I love Bitcoin. I think it's going way higher.
Really?
It just have to flush out the kind of the weak hands, if you will.
Looking at the historical context here, Gareth, as a technical person, one of the things that's been fascinating to me about this Bitcoin year-long period is that it has rare degrees of slow momentum at highs, where I look at RSIs a lot, but just the rate of change, the way that kind of wedge broke down, as you mentioned, the failure back in the spring, to see a similar fake out. I was looking today at the chart. I don't believe there's any moment in Bitcoin history where you're down 20% in a month after making a record. I believe that's the first time ever. I'm going to double check tonight, but I'm quite certain it is. What do you think that means?
Yeah, I think part of that is that you have some players here. You have people that are unloading, so you have this bearish sentiment out there starting to emerge, this emergence of the deleveraging side of things that's pushing it down. And then you still have a lot of buy the dippers that are eagerly waiting for these dips that have been told that this is going to be 100,000 by year end or 500,000 in a couple months after that. So you get this kind of back and forth, if you will. And I think that's really what's driving this choppiness. But again, I think ultimately you'll see more downside after bounces. And again, just the point is, be careful. These are risky assets. There's a lot of money in the system, and it is going to get sucked out by the Fed to keep inflation in check into the 2022 midterms.
Okay. All right. So thinking about this still as a two-way trade and price discovery that could be part of a longer term still bullish trend for BTC. Gareth, love the details, the context for the analysis. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, great stuff. Really good perspective. Gareth Soloway, Chief Market Strategist at InTheMoneyStocks.com, InTheMoneyStocks.com.